anyone's wanting to get a book for the signing later, the books are available at different desks. And there'll be a little bit of time. We're going to officially start at 7:35, as suggested, but just take some time to enjoy prelude music and hang out and get centered. So you may want to take a deep breath and just let yourself spiritual center, letting go of any tension, hurriedness, any disharmony. And just let yourself take in the wonderful energy of East West Bookstore, which has been established by people like Lee and others here for us in this room, and your own energy that you brought. Just breathing deeply and knowing that you're buoyed up by spiritual forces, unseen forces. Just let yourself feel that attunement. Whatever your sense of higher power is, deeper power, to let yourself begin to make the connection with the part of higher power that is at the center of you, at the very center of your being, taking that deep breath. And knowing that you are light, you are truth, you are divinity in expression. Doesn't belong, bow into the hands of our Creator, called by different names in different parts of the earth. We have the energy of the circles that are here, sacred circles, the feminine and the masculine principles. Just let yourself enjoy the sacred feminine, the sacred masculine, make up the one. can set your own intention for sharing tonight, that you would like to receive and that you would like to give. And knowing that we are not alone in this room, that we're surrounded by spiritual forces. And that each of us has that connection within, connecting to forces of spirit. We're just getting centered. For those of you that joined us, taking the next 5 minutes to let yourself let go of whatever any disharmonious energies, and let yourself come into the center of your own being, knowing that you are light, you are truth, you are divinity in expression.
Oh, breathe. Good evening. Thank you for coming to tonight's event. We have Lynn Rogers with us. Before I say a couple things about tonight, I did want to mention if you have a cell phone, good time to turn it down. If you're thirsty, we have some purified water off to the side. There'll be a book signing, but it won't be out by the fountain, table by the fountain. It'll be right here just to keep the atmosphere whole throughout the evening time. To buy the book, just go to the front desk, pay for it, then come back in to have Lynn sign it afterwards. A couple events which might be of interest to you. Tomorrow is going to be a talk, Attract Your Perfect Partner workshop by Dr. Val Logan. Monday's talk by Brandon Bays was canceled a while ago, but we have a replacement, Margaret Ruby, who's the author of DNA Healing, who's the talk on Monday. And Carola Montfort, who's been one of the healers and intuitive counselors here, will be giving a talk on the guided touch Tuesday, September 19th. Then Jared Rosen and David Rippey, who is the author of The Flip, Turn Your World Around, will be giving a talk on Wednesday, September 20th. There'll be a lecture on EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, by Philip Montrose next Thursday. And then on Friday, we're going to have our Customer Appreciation Night in celebration of the autumnal equinox. It's a free event. Just come on, and there'll be meditation and chanting, a little candle ceremony, and some beverages and snacks. So fun time to come by. It's Friday. So we have Lynn Rogers with us, who's the author of Edgar Cayce and The Eternal Feminine. And she was born in Berkeley, where she became active in the peace and civil rights movement as a teenager. She received her bachelor's degree in transpersonal psychology at Antioch University in San Francisco, and her master's in transpersonal studies at Atlantic University in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And she took additional graduate studies with Matthew Fox at the Institute for Culture and Creation Spirituality in Oakland. Based in California, in San Jose, California, Lynn is a lecturer, teacher, and counselor by diverse groups, including philosophical foundations, colleges, churches, and media, integrating Edgar Cayce and other traditions with that of the re-emerging divine feminine. Tonight's book, Edgar Cayce and the Emerging Feminine, explores Edgar Cayce's work with the re-emerging goddess tradition, plus insights regarding creation myths and twin souls. And I understand we're also going to have a moon circle meditation, which invites us to enhance our intuitive gifts and meet the divine feminine within. About this book, Dr. Pamela Bro, who is the adjunct professor of Women and Gender Studies program at Yale University, has written, "This is a bold and pioneering book exploring links between the eternal feminine and the work and thought of Edgar Cayce. From creation myths to twin souls to goddess practices, ancient and modern, Rogers offers insights into the causes of oppression of women and the feminine in search of her vision of gender justice. Unique to her book is her Circle of Light ritual, the wisdom gleaned from the multi-generational interviews of women engaged in the work. In a world that desperately needs women's gifts and the eternal feminine, this book is a shining star." So thank you for coming, and please join me in welcoming Lynn Rogers.
Well, I have with me tonight two very close women friends, musician Janet Childs and Patricia Anglin, who is going to help with our moon circle tonight. We are all priestesses of the past, and we are ministers in a metaphysical church called Universal Church of the Master. How many of you know who Edgar Cayce is? It's important when we think of Edgar Cayce to think of a man born in 1877 in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And he only had an 8th grade education, which was typical for that place and for that time. He was dyslexic. He really had difficulty with his spelling slate, and he despaired of ever being a good student. He wanted to be the Billy Graham of his day. And that there was a man named Moody who was a traveling evangelist. Now, many of you here believe we've lived before, and Edgar Cayce could have known much in his past incarnations. But consciously, as a young boy in the Deep South, he wanted to be an evangelistic Christian minister. He saw his grandfather thrown from a horse, the squire, and die in a pond before him. His father was somewhat harsh because of his difficulty, his dyslexia, we might imagine. And he would go often into the woods and take the Bible, which was the book of the day, and he read it every year of his life. And he sat out in the woods and he prayed. And he went home one night after this, being in the deep woods. He was close to his mother and his grandmother, and he went to his room. And he was visited, he said, by a feminine angel, which is quite interesting in that day and time. And that being said, Edgar Cayce, what is it that you want? And he said, I would like to be of help to people, particularly children who are sick. And after that, he thought no more about it. But that night, as he slept, he developed a photographic memory of his spelling words the next day. And so when his father tested him, he knew all of it. He knew the entire book. And somehow, out of that heartfelt prayer, he made his first connection to the universal intelligence. He thought it was the Christ spirit of the universe. And in his traditional thought, when I was researching this book, and I went back for my graduation in 1991, I had already studied with Jess Stern, the man who wrote The Sleeping Prophet. And Jess Stern was a wonderful author. He was an Irish reporter, and he really brought a lot of people to Edgar Cayce. But he was, rest his soul, very chauvinistic. And so he liked me and I liked him, but there was a point where I could not stop but speaking out. He wanted us all to write the same short story in the creative writing class. It was ageist, it was sexist, but I didn't say anything because I liked him so much. And finally, a woman librarian from Norfolk stood up and said, you know, Jess, I can't write this anymore. And he said, madam, sit down, you are not a woman. And I said, yes, she is. And so that began my debate with Jess Stern, which led me to want to write this. And I was immersed in the Cayce work there. After Edgar Cayce gained that photographic consciousness about his spelling words, this gift would come and go. When he was injured in sandlot baseball, when he lost his voice, this same ability in a sleep-like state to contact the universal mind became his. And hypnotists, his father, others, would conduct him and say, Edgar Cayce, tell us about this body in this sleep state. And he would describe the physical body. And he would say, we have before you the body of Janet. Now, Janet could be in California. We have before you the body of Janet. And he, in the sleep state, with no memory of this afterwards, could describe, like a physician from the Mayo Clinic, and better yet, a holistic physician, from head to toe, all the systems in the body and how they were interacting with her soul and her spirit, and what was amiss and what needed to be corrected for a real healing. So pretty soon, people began to come to Edgar Cayce, particularly parents of children who were going to lose their child if another resource wasn't sought. And then doctors came, and then later theologians. But Edgar Cayce's shock came once when he was in a sleep state, and a man said, when did my health condition begin? And the reading said, the universal intelligence said, when you were a monk 400 years ago, implying the guy had a past life. So he got up and reread the Bible, the entire Bible, to make sure that the Bible didn't say reincarnation was wrong. And it didn't. And it actually implied it a couple of times, like Elijah as possibly having lived, coming back as John the Baptist and other things. So he said, if it doesn't hurt anyone, I will go on doing these readings. When his wife, Gertrude, became ill, and he was fearful of using the readings knowledge of health on her, that she became so ill, there was nothing he could do but do a reading, and she had a kind of tuberculosis after the death of one of their children. A child for whom, again, his earth mind said, I don't dare seek the reading, and his child died. And his wife was despondent and dying of a kind of tuberculosis. And finally he did the reading, which told him to get a big old keg and char a keg and put apple brandy in it. And that when he put apple brandy in it, and when she breathed it, she recovered. So the American Medical Association said the following. In March 16, 1979, the AMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, said, "The roots of present-day holism go back 100 years to the birth of Edgar Cayce in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. By the time he died in 1944, Cayce was well recognized as a mystic who entered sleep trances and dictated a philosophy of life and healing called a reading. His base was established in Virginia Beach, Virginia, now the headquarters of the Cayce Foundation." Well, I had a wonderful woman teacher, Jessica Madigan. I'll tell you about her in a minute. Some call her the feminine Edgar Cayce of our age. And I was born in Berkeley. I grew up in Menlo Park. And I have written a couple of other books called Born in Berkeley and Where the Flowers Have Gone that deal with coming of age right here in Mountain View, Palo Alto, Menlo Park, if you're interested, and have recently written an Arcadia Images of America book with Robert Burrell, which deals with our area and some of the spiritual underpinnings. But this book, after Cayce did the health work, he then found that people began to ask other questions, like how did we get here? And past lives came into it, and creation stories came into it, and soulmates and dreams and spiritual ideals all came into it. The thing with Cayce and his psychic spiritual work is, it's not just a phenomena. He really felt it had to come from a spiritual base, and it's in living your life the best you can and being prayerful to your idea of creator and trying to live that in little small ways, like smiling at a person who's disabled who can barely smile back, and that is how we become truly psychic in the truest sense of the word. He said if you're doing it just for ego, just for phenomena, don't even do it, because it's like a Frankenstein. But if it's connected to your life, that is this paranormal ability.
There's two in the front. There's two in the front right here.
So how did Cayce, why Cayce and the Eternal Feminine? There are books that have been put forth by the ARE on dreams and many other topics. But after Cayce did his readings from about the turn of the century, especially 1910, when the New York Times carried an article on him, and he became almost a freak because he became known the world over, all the way through 1945, when so many people were sending him letters trying to find out if their children would survive the war, that even though his readings said only do 2 readings a day, he did them all day long, and he perished in January of 45. Well, there was a woman, my teacher, who at Christmas, Jessica Madigan, Christmas of 1944, she wrote a letter to Edgar Cayce asking Edgar Cayce for a reading. And as she sealed the envelope, she was very psychic. A dark shadow fell over the envelope. Edgar Cayce saw auras consciously, and so did Jessica. I've learned how to see auras sometimes, but very few people see them naturally, and maybe some of you in this room. So when she saw the shadow go over the envelope, she knew that she would never receive that reading, and he died in 46. But about 1949, she traveled to Virginia Beach, and she met his son, Lynn Cayce. And Lynn Cayce told Gladys Davis Turner, who was Cayce's secretary and probably closest soul, although not able to be married in this life. And you always get another chance with your soulmate, by the way. So that's the good news. And so and Gladys Davis Turner told me in early 1980s, when I called her on the phone and asked for help, Cayce's remedy for a serious ailment I had picked up for a while when my disabled autistic daughter Vanessa went to a camp for special children. And it had gone on for months, and I was a young mother, and I asked her what Cayce would do for it, and did it, and here I am. So, but she said outside of his father, Edgar Cayce, Lynn Cayce, the head of the ARE, the son who carried on the work, said Jessica Madigan was the most psychic individual he had ever met of all the people who had ever entered Virginia Beach. And I was fortunate to meet her coming out of my teens. After all of the social movements of Berkeley and Menlo Park and the crazy things that went on, I was quite young for it. I found myself then drawn to the awakening spiritual movements that happen so wonderfully in our area, and wanting to publish a book about that in novel form soon as well. And so through a set of synchronistic experiences, I was led to meet Jessica Madigan at Asilomar. Between the time she met Cayce's son and the time I met her, she had been very much an exponent of the work, but not in a monetary way. She collected all the names for the early ARE. But she had a uniquely feminine approach. She acknowledged her feelings as well as her very bright mind. She was interested in psychology, and the son, Lynn, had said, either I have to make a religion of it or a science of it. And if you read a lot of the wonderful Cayce books, they're quite academic and scientific, including this one, because I had to write it back there, but I think it's a very good reference nonetheless. And he decided to make it very academic. So the work is very structured. You know, I'm going to meditation level 3.5 now. Well, Jessica wasn't like this. She took in abandoned pets so that they wouldn't be exterminated at the laboratories. They chewed up all her best manuscripts. She was a foundling. She was adopted. Her parents died, and she was in an orphanage around 1911 in the Deep South. And this wonderful man, she said, who changed her life, a fairly wealthy man who was very intuitive, who might be sitting in this room with us, walked into the orphanage. He had a feeling to go to the orphanage. He was some kind of benefactor. He walked to her crib, and she remembers hovering into her physical body and going in at 2 weeks of age because Daddy was going to take her home. Well, his wife, who he married, who had an 18-year-old child, promptly left him for a year. But he knew in his heart this was his baby, and he was going to keep her. So fortunately he did, and he taught her many wonderful spiritual things that quickened her to know about Edgar Cayce. And then I met her after. Her heartfelt, more feminine approach kind of ran aground in the Cayce work because she was corresponding very closely with Lynn. I met a young, then blind violinist, Ursula, who was blind temporarily, and she used to go to dinner with Jessica and Lynn, who really, I believe, were soulmates, despite what anyone might say. Jessica was married to a fatherly figure, a non-intimate marriage, and Lynn had already married Sally, whom Jessica liked, but they would love to discuss the Cayce work with Ursula present. And Lynn said, Jessica, if you're so psychic, when I go back to Virginia Beach, see if you can dream and know some things that no one else knows about me. Well, she did it. And she started dreaming their pastimes together. One night he nearly choked on a chicken bone, and she dreamed every bit of it and mentioned it the next morning. So she began to dream their past lives, and she began to feel that they had been together, possibly as Elizabeth and Robert Browning, at the turn of the century, at the temples of Diana and Apollo. Well, this was a little much for Lynn, who was a Southerner. He was very traditional, and Jessica, of all things, did not want an affair with him. It was not 2006, right? But this soul closeness was very important to her. And another woman came along, Elsie Sechrist. And Elsie Sechrist said, television's coming in, Jessica. And she and her husband were donating lots of money to the ARE. TV's coming in, and I want to be the first one to write a book on dreams. So she went, and when Jessica would go to the study groups at Elsie's house, Elsie would pick out some old lawn furniture way in the back and put a chair in the back for Jessica. So there was a little karmic thing going on there. And Elsie was very negative on sexuality. She sort of felt like that if you're spiritual, you're not sexual. So her dream book, she wrote, said, sheets mean dirty sheets, sexual activity. Well, I met Elsie toward the end of her life. I interviewed women in here from 14 to 107 female people about Cayce's work and how they felt about it. And Elsie was one, and she was quite charming. I met her before her death. And Joe Haddocks is one of the, along with Robert Burrell and Ainsley Hamilton tonight, helping us in the masculine force here tonight, helped me. And when he went upstairs, came upstairs to bring something back that she needed, she had just taken her shower, and she nearly threw off the towel in her dotage to run for this handsome man. So everything she had repressed in her whole life came spilling out at the end. And Jessica knew that we have an unconscious mind, we have deep feelings, we have sexuality, spirituality, and without being consciously a feminist, she really, I think, pointed the way to me that Cayce needed to include the feminine. So Jessica and parted, at that point, parted from the ARE and formed the Philosophical Roundtable at Asilomar, where a bunch of young people like myself, teenagers, refugees from the late 60s, poured in, and we sat at her feet and we listened. We went to Come As You Were parties where 100 people in perfect past life costume would gather. And it was a beautiful and wonderful experience. She has passed into spirit, and when she did, I decided to get my graduate degree back in Virginia Beach. She never spoke of what had happened there, but I did go back, and I did get a master's degree. I met Jess Stern, and I decided, having learned a little bit here about the incoming goddess tradition, which I'm sure many of you know about, that the eternal feminine was needed. But I went to the marketing department and they said, Edgar Cayce missed the boat on the feminine. He never wrote a word about it, never said a word about it. So they were just starting to put the readings on computer, and I had a friend back there who was in the computer technical side, which I am clearly not. And he went in and on Sunday did a quick search. They'd only put 4,000 of them on a CD. Now you can get the whole thing. And I said, look for the word goddess. Look for the word priestess. So he looked, bing, bing, bing. It was coming up, but nobody knew where to look. So I started looking for the connections. How does the work of Edgar Cayce, the most documented, researched, clairvoyant, prophetic, metaphysical figure of the world, how does it connect with the re-emerging divine feminine tradition? And the whole thing is going to be about balance, but one more point I wanted to add. In my own journey, I was getting some training in the UCM church. This was like 83 or something, and I was a licentiate minister, and it's a very open church. You can talk about practically anything. But I had had sort of a crisis in my life. My writing teacher, who was very Jungian, was talking about even her definitions of anima and animus, which it's great to have one. We're very stereotypical. And I did not feel that my strength or my creativity was necessarily masculine. I just felt it was me. And I don't doubt that there are archetypal feminine and masculine forces, but I don't think we can describe them by the stereotypes of Jung's period. I wrote about that and later found out that the Jungian Institute agrees that their eros is a passionate connection to nature is a part of the masculine. Mary Wollstonecraft, the feminist of 1780, said that reason belongs to us all, and I think we have a slightly feminine way of reasoning and a slightly masculine way, just as intuition belongs to all of us. So these were some of the things. When I did the first talk at this church, this very easygoing church, everybody was stone silent because, except for Janet. And there are people now who embrace it. It's a common place there. But Janet walked up and smiled and was the only one who did. Later, when I put this book into workbook form, Patricia Anglin found it, approached me, and we've been working with it ever since. I want to talk a little bit more about Cayce's concepts, but I think listening to the Balancing Wheel, a wonderful song by Janet Childs, her CD is here too, helps put us in the mood of the balance that we need. Not only the masculine, the feminine, to understand that life is cyclical. There's spirituality, sexuality, there's birth, there are transitions, endings, beginnings, and we need it all in the balance.
Welcome to all of you. It's really an honor to be here. So I just invite you to let go of the day. You're just coming in. Just be in touch that we are in balance right now. And I dedicate this song to all of you that do so much in our world. Sometimes it can be rough balancing all the parts. Between the darkness and the light, surrender and the fight. We are tenderly, angrily, joyously dancing on the balancing wheel. dancing on the balancing wheel. The balancing wheel. Dancing on the balancing wheel.
Janet. Here is an Edgar Cayce reading. Remember, this is very archaic language, and that he was so traditionally Christian. But after completing my research and returning to Virginia Beach, some of the very teachers that had been so traditionally patriarchal started to search the readings themselves. And the late Keith Bondurant, who was a Baptist minister at one point, found this in Edgar Cayce. Only those become conscious of saying that have attuned themselves to that which is in accord or seeking to know his will. For each soul, every soul, should seek to attune its mind, its soul, yea, its body vibrations. To that he, the Son of Man, the Mother God, in Jesus the Christ, lived in the earth. Tune into that light and it becomes beautiful in that you think, that you are, that you live. Well, that was the Christian Edgar Cayce talking about in Christianity, which is one of many wonderful world traditions, that Jesus was expressing the Mother God in Christianity. And Matthew Fox, the wonderful Dominican priest with whom I studied, said that the goddess and the cosmic Christ are the same thing. And I think if we go way back in history, we see this. We started out, this book, touches on many themes. One of them is the creation myths around the world, because that's a point where mythology and Cayce's work connect. In every race around the world, there is a story of a separating being. And let's just go to Christianity, to the earlier books, the Gnostic books that were thrown out of our current Bible. Here's a wonderful creation story. And the way it goes is that the Creator was made up of a divine couple. And we think of, even in the Bible, and I'm starting Christian because that's where Cayce was. Genesis, if we think of Genesis in our traditional Bible, male and female made they them in their own image. Well, it sounds like the Creator is the plural. God has two. Edgar Cayce talked about the Creator as the creative forces and as father or mother or both. So the Gnostic story, before our traditional story, said that the Creator was Sabaoth, masculine father, God power, and Sophia, feminine mother, wisdom, as one. Can any child not come from two parents? And so the Creator was one. And this Creator made Adam and Zoe. Now, in this Gnostic story, and I'm not sure it's any more true than the Revs story, it takes a slightly different slant. And it said that Adam lacked a soul, so his companion Eve breathed life into him. And he said, "Forever after I will call you Eve, for you are the mother of the living." So that's the early Gnostic story. And the creation myths really cover all the 5 races. The idea that Cayce had is that we were light beings. We were light beings. Jessica used to teach kindergarten at one point. And she said, she told the children, think of a boat in the sky. And the boat tipped, and a third of the angels fell to earth, where probably they were to watch over the evolution of the animals and the plants, which we're just getting back to now with global warming and ecology. And the boat tipped, and they fell to earth. But they had free will. The way I see it, like teenagers with the car keys. Teenagers with the car keys. Adam has a son who's just got the car keys. Like teenagers with the car keys, they used their free will. They had so many strong co-creative abilities because our destiny is to become co-creators, Cayce said, with the divine. So they had all these co-creative abilities, and they used them. And there was the wonderful fish realm, and they projected a part of their energy, and suddenly a mermaid took shape. Well, there was the horse realm, and there was a cyclops, and there was a mixing so that a mythic world, when these souls were more fourth dimensional, existed. But they had no real concern for these thought projections. The Christian Bible talks about them as Liliths. And they were led by a very bright being called Emilius, which was neither male nor female, a very bright way-shower being. And that being at one point said, well, let's go home, back to the heavenly realms. And Jessica said it was a cry that rang around the world. They could not return because they were enmeshed in their own self-will creations, and they had a responsibility to this. Thus began reincarnation. So the souls turned back to some of the angels who hadn't left, and to the Mother, Father, Creator, and said, well, help us come into a body that we can, a vehicle. And so, partly overshadowing evolving forms of evolution, and partly with divine spark, a fluid sort of body form that was masculine and feminine in one came in, and there was a splitting that took place. One of the splits was into the 5 races of humanity. So a part of you, if you were one of these, went into the Gobi Desert, the yellow race, to the Ethiopian land, the black race, to the red land of Atlantis, to the brown of the Andes, to the white of the Carpathian realm. And the white race may have been one of the last to evolve. And so there were the white barbarians, they might have called them. And so there they were with these racial divisions. And then each soul split itself. So you have these brother-sister souls to begin with that went into the different races. And you find also that there are goddess myths of a separating androgynous being in every race around the world. You see that some kind of being separated itself. And the same thing as the creation myth. There's the in ancient Sumeria, it was a goddess who made people in pairs, and then they separated. In the Mexican tablet found in the 1550s, Colonel James Churchward found it, that God made people in pairs, and they separated. So this idea of androgyny, and then coming into 2, this is really crucial when you want to think about what Cayce said. The last division was each little 5-pointed piece of the star split itself into masculine and feminine polarity, that is, and you've got twin souls, soulmates. A friend here who's really an identical twin, a co-writer. But this was a complementary thing. So here is your right hand and here is your left. Here is feminine energy and masculine energy, and it came apart into 2. And that happened very individually over time. Apparently Edgar Cayce and his own twin soul Gladys were in a feminine body form well into ancient Atlantis toward the end. The Adam and Eve story, was this an androgynous being who was split into 2? The word in Hebrew for rib means the other side of a person. So it's possibly thought that this is another one of the separating androgynous being stories. So, after they did this, there were early cycles of civilization. Lemuria was that early thought-creating world. And then they began again in these new body forms in Atlantis, which lasted over 130 to 200,000 years with 3 major cycles that included great earthquakes and later destructions. The Hopi Indians say, we're at the same point the Atlanteans were in. I think the Hopis are the descendants of the Atlanteans. The earth will turn over again if we don't care for it, the animals, the Hopis, stateside of course, and the earth. And then we're right at that point. Cayce's prophecy said that back in 1910, he said, the turn of this century would be one of the most difficult times in which to live, a great period of testing, but the greatest opportunity for you to be alive. And we have been inundated before because of our own misuse. When they experimented on humanoids, it's like our cruel experiments on animals today, unnecessary ones and cruel ones at animal factories. These are not doing us any good as a planet, because this is a consciousness thing. So the Cayce reading said we traversed through Lemuria, Atlantis, and here we are today with new partnership ideals with people like Jean Bolin and Merlin Stone, bringing in the goddess energy. And that's been brought in from the 80s. We've learned that archaeology tells us that around the world, for 30 to 50,000 years, we've celebrated the ancient goddess. And that in those times, we honored the masculine and the feminine, that wandering Indo-Iranians overtook these gentle agrarian people, communal people, who had the first language and metallurgy, ran over them, and their culture subsided. The second age of Atlantis, interesting in Cayce's readings, was a feminine age, and when it ended, then you see, as these people fled Atlantis in the great cataclysms, then you see in the caves the goddess energy emerging. I don't think it just emerged there. I think it existed from the beginning of time in the dual creator, the mother-father creator, that the Amelia's soul, whom Cayce said fell and led the way back, went into the 5 root races of humanity. There was a black Adam, a brown Eve, a yellow Adam, and so forth. And those that started in Atlantis may have become Adam and Eve, and later Mary and Jesus in Christianity. Others, were they Buddha, were they Krishna? But this is a long process of soul evolution, and we're all part of it. We're going to do a circle of light process to sort of celebrate some of this, all that we're talking about. Did anyone have any questions? Yes.
I'm fascinated by your summing up of how we all might have gotten here.
Yeah,
And is that all in your book?
it's all in the book, and much, 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 much more.
Does
Yes.
Cayce believe, as the, I've read a little bit of his Many Mansions by Gina
Wonderful
Sumner.
book.
Wonderful, but she
Jessica's
didn't
best
have
friend.
most of all of the readings, right, to do her summary?
No, but, well, yes, because Gladys laboriously typed everyone, and they're back in Virginia Beach, and you can read them.
Yes.
The only one that was taken off the shelf was a rather passionate dream that Cayce had about he and Gladys in a past life in Persia, and there's a sign, removed for retyping since 1971. But I found it, somebody gave it to me, and boy, what a passionate past life.
Yes, that you
So,
found these
I
readings
found
about
them.
women, because I don't recall ever hearing that before.
Oh, it's fabulous. I mean, for example, Cayce said, remember the story of Ra-Ta? Cayce himself had lived as the Egyptian Ra-Ta.
Does he go back to the beginning to the Sumerian or, Atlantis before the
He
Sumerian?
does Atlantis, he does Egypt, he does everything. And the published books tends to put a fairly masculine slant on it. But when I did the search, and it's only here, I found that when I looked for priestess, guess what? He said that Ra-Ta, the great, great Egyptian priest who built the pyramids with Isis and Hermes, past life maybe of the Master Jesus, black, wonderful black man, he says that that Hermes grew up in a society where the female ruled, and his mother was a goddess. I mean, and so all this is really hidden in Cayce, but it's not hidden anymore, it's all here. And I have lots of material on twin souls from Jessica in here, how you can recognize your own twin soul, signs like telepathy, like tremendous oneness. We have twin souls here that I know I must be. Star, and your husband's name is?
Mike.
Mike. Star is in my creative writing class. I teach a Wise Women Circle and creative writing in San Jose. And Star entered my class. Her daughter's been attending for a while. And she's been writing about her wonderful relationship with Mike and his with her. May I speak about you? Is that all right?
Sure. Yes.
Mike is blind and nearly deaf. And they have he's brilliant, and he communicates on behalf of blind deaf people throughout the world by computer. But they live in the moment and enjoy life more than any couple that I know.
He's a fun guy.
Oh.
I call him my mushroom.
When soulmates find each other, it's a burst of sunlight when you find your soulmate. You feel like the sun is rising, and Jessica said it better. She found this in Cayce, and her booklets bring Cayce to life. It cuts through all the academia. She said, when a young, well, there are a couple of readings. I think it was a young man who asked, how would I know my soulmate? Maybe a young woman. And the reading said, the heart knoweth, the soul never forgetteth. It's written in you. When you meet that person, you know. Nothing can take that away. one young man said, well, what should I do about so-and-so? We went together for a while and I'm trying to go on with my practical life and her every thought is for me. What do I do about it? And Cayce said, you've been one from the beginning of time. You might think about how you treat her because she is the other portion of your own entity. Now, can soulmates, are they always male and female? Are they always in heterosexual relationships? Not necessarily, because remember, it's polarity. May I speak about you, Jen? Is that right? It's polarity because, there's a case of Jonathan and David in the Bible. Jonathan and David, Jessica felt David was the masculine soul and Jonathan the feminine. And he had Hebrew battles to do with the giant and so forth. And so his feminine companion wanted to come with him, but she chose a male body form for that incarnation. And yet there was that attunement and that male-female, masculine-feminine balance. The church I go to, it's a very diverse church, very diverse. And
What was
people,
the name of that you said the
I will after, if you come up and I'll write that down for you. Yeah, you see him. So there's a feminine-masculine balance that takes place. And may I speak about you? Is that all right? And Janet, I've known Janet to have a feminine companion, then a masculine companion until David went to get his PhD, and now has a long-term companion, a woman, Corey, who carries a lot of that masculine energy. Now, who's to know how these souls know each other or who's to judge? But the readings say that the polarity is there with the close souls. You click when you meet that person. You're really an answer. And these two will drive around, because she tells about it in class, and she'll say, okay, which way do we turn? And he tells her, right. And they follow spirit and have a wonderful life together. So your soulmates don't have to be in the most glamorous position in life, but you would comfort each other, Jessica said. You're an answer to each other. And you have telepathy. And your twin soul can be at the opposite ends of the earth. And you know their moods. And there could be a person that you are estranged from, or who's passed into spirit. But the readings say, every night you're together. Every single night you will gravitate in the sleep state back together. So you are not separated in a 24-hour period from your twin soul. Now, with the romantics in us, have we met people who are the worst karmic person we've ever met and we thought it was our twin soul? My daughter says, it has to be your mom. But yes, but that's the fun of it. And I hope to publish subsequent novels that really deal with that. Any other questions or comments? I just want to sum up just a little bit and we'll start the moon circle. So Cayce said that we came as androgynous beings. We split into the 5 races, which are all equal. They are just different lessons for us in the earth. Those points split into masculine and feminine. That reflects our creator, who is masculine and feminine both. The goddess tradition says, all archaeology now tells us that all over the world, people thought because women gave birth, their first concept of creatress might be that goddess, gave birth to the heavens and the earth. And many cultures had either a feminine center to religion or a balance, a god-goddess system. Later, that was overtaken with the owning of property and the owning of persons. And we had a father focus, which may have been part of our evolution, from the matrifocal to the patrifocal. We now need to bring the divine feminine back in, because we need her to balance the masculine to save this planet. And I think that it isn't that feminine is only earth and only nature and masculine is all mind. I disagree with that in this book, and there's a lot of evidence for it. I think when the feminine religions were lost, it was the simplest people out in the country who remembered to plant by the moon, and they remembered things. And so some of the chakras survived, but in Atlantis, long ago, in Egypt, India, and other transitional cultures, this was complex. Higher chakras, lower chakras, all balanced, which is why we talked about the balancing wheel. So what we want to do is to take a moment and let ourselves stretch. And if you want to walk around and look at a couple books or stretch or use a restroom or just look at the beauty of the circle, we're going to do a process together that we recreated, that we think existed in ancient times. Yes, if you like, we're going to go signing after, but you're
It's a really good fit to it, I think.
Actually, the circle is described in the book, so if you have one, it's all there, step by step for you to do at home. I have, and they're over there, and I'll be available in my phone. Awesome, okay, awesome. And then we're going to do a moon cycle process to meditate and enhance your ESP. That's the next thing we're going to do. It'll take us about 5 minutes break to stretch.
Valley of
And the reason why we open a circle is to make you go around and then you go out. So that's one of the concepts of the circle. The circle, I believe, was done in goddess times where women would sit around in circles, not only just women, but men also. And that's the reason why we're going to be calling the 4 directions. And then after calling the 4 directions, I have some Cayce, well, I've copied them. They're Cayce readings, and we're going to use those to do a little readings on.
I wanted to mention with Patty Hill, England, it was really appropriate for her to help us with the circle because she has Native American ancestry. But in addition, as I even further learned when working on the Alviso book, Patty's family came after the Dust Bowl, and she began as a child picking fruit in the Valley of Heart's Delight, and her family worked with earth magnetics and were as close and contributing to the earth as any family I know. So I wanted to honor her in that way.
We call to the guardians of the East and of air and of intellect. We call to the angels. We ask for divine protection for the circle. Hail, be a part of the circle this evening. We call to the energies and the guardians of the south and of fire, of inspiration and of the noonday sun. We call for the angels to be with us. Hail, be a part of this circle now. We call to the energies of the west and of the water and of the evening and of the setting sun. We call forth the angels of the west and of water. Hail, be a part of this circle this evening. We call to the energies of the north and of the earth and of the midnight and the angels and the guardians thereof. Hail, and we split the veil and we open it up to bring in intuition to this circle tonight.
I'd like all of you to center on your connection to higher, deeper power that we began with earlier. All of the guardians of the natural directions that we call are those angelic forces that stand in the light of the one Creator, called by many names throughout the 5 races of humanity. Let yourself connect to Creator in whatever way is right for you. Cayce readings say we search for God, for Creator, in our own individual way. And we've let ourselves connect now to the natural realm, from China, Native America, to the Celtic, Irish, goddess folks. The 4 earthly directions are really important in our life. The book talks about north, the realm of winter. It helps to refresh our physical body. The snows end what needs to be in, and deep beneath the earth, she replenishes herself. The east is the realm of spring and dawn. Goddess Persephone, of air, clearing her thinking. The south is the realm for the Native Americans of the playful child. It's intuition. In the circle of life that we have devised, it integrates Cayce's work with the goddess tradition. It pulls traditions together. The south is fire, intuition. It's your success to the Chinese. It's when your star is at a zenith, your work is flowering the world. feelings, healing our hearts, and that's where we are now. In the autumn time, healing our hearts and emotion.
We are on a journey. Ooh, deep within the body of the earth. And the eagle and love and hope is born in the sunrise. Flying on the wings of the dove, reaching to the passion of our creative waters of emotion and the deep dreaming of the twilight. We're on a journey of love.
I would like to let you come into the experience and maybe go around the room, let everyone state who's decided to stay for the circle your name, your sign in traditional astrology, and anything if you want to say something about what draws you to the goddess briefly, that would be fine. And so I'm Lynn, I'm a Virgo, and I've been working with this since the 80s and find it very healing and empowering. And Meredith and the Gemini. Interested in developing compassion. Compassion is the goddess.
I'm Chris, I'm a Capricorn, and I'm just interested in developing more of the goddess attributes within daily life.
I'm Betsy, I'm also a Virgo, and I find the goddess tradition kind of gives me more self-confidence.
Doesn't it? What gives you confidence?
Confidence, maybe strength is a better word, to not be rolled over so easily.
Thank you.
I'm Virginia, and I'm Leo, and from the time I was very young, I've always identified with women heroes like Wonder Woman. So when the goddesses came along, that just fit right in, what I was looking for.
It fit for you. And you, sir, you were telling me,
My
right?
name's John, I'm a Taurus, and I just returned a few days ago from Scandinavia where I've gone to research the goddess culture that predated the Vikings. It was the original spirituality of Scandinavia, the Hale culture.
Hale is the goddess of Scandinavia.
Hale
She
is,
preceded the Vikings.
Hale is the original spirituality that has Scandinavia. The words are words coming from Scandinavian languages that derive from her name are holy, health, heal, hail, hold, fall, etc. And hail is still the word for all of those, as well as her name.
So many words, holy, health, that we have in English from Scandinavian language,
Right,
come from Hale, the early goddess culture which preceded the Vikings. And that's so typical that long ago we had a feminine-based culture, then a masculine, and now we need the balance. You, sir? Your sign and
My name's Doc, Scorpio, and I'm wanting to feel the balancing factor of the female energies, because I've been in the valley a long time in electronics and all this very masculine and kind of And I need this balance, that's.
Need the balance for our valley and working in electronics. Thank
Yes.
you. And you are?
I'm Galina, I'm Taurus, and I believe I came here out of curiosity. I want to know what this goddess about.
Where do you come from?
Russia.
From Russia? Interesting. I have ancestors, one part that are Czechoslovakian, Bohemian, and I think that's the part of me that was that quarter, and my other side's the daughters of the American Revolution, so I think that Bohemian is strong. And in Russia, I'm sure, long ago, is also the goddess. Everywhere in the world. Interesting. And you are? Yes.
I'm Rajati, I'm an Aries, and
From India.
Yes. And I'm actually new to this, but I just came here out of curiosity to listen to you speak.
Well, thank you. And the interesting in India I wrote about as a transitional culture, because when the gender polar axis shifted, India had a wonderful time where Atlanteans streamed into India, and in all of the legends of India, the religious systems of India, always their god has his goddess, because that duality is kept alive. And Ram, I wrote about Ram, who what Jessica thought was an Atlantean. Cayce said Ram probably came from Atlantis, came by air, maybe by flying shoe ship, into India, where he marries Sita. And her name means born in the furrow, which the furrow is the goddess. We're in the Virgo time of grain in the furrow. So she represents the goddess. But in the story, they come together, marry, and she becomes pregnant, and a pirate steals her away and takes her away. And so Ram doesn't see her and find her again until the son is 14 years old, and he's consumed with jealousy that maybe the son belongs to the pirate. And she's despondent because he's rejecting her and throws herself in a burning pyre. And the Cayce reading said, and this may be controversial, that the souls who became Jesus and Mary in Christianity may have lived as Ram and Sita in India. And if they have these problems, I guess we all do, love is hard, but still, even with soulmates. But in India, it's so beautifully expressed, the balance of the feminine and masculine in the religious systems at least. Thank you. And you are?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm Julie, I'm a Libra, and I've heard a lot about goddess. I just came to learn more.
About goddess energy. A Libra. And you are?
My name is Alejandra, and I'm a Pisces.
Alejandra. And so you're
Pisces.
a Pisces.
And all of this fascinates me since I was very little. And now I found a church where I feel I belong to, and I have a family there. It's like Metaphysical Church of Enlightenment in Birmingham.
All the wonderful metaphysical churches are so great. The Enlightenment churches. Ours is UCM, yours is Metaphysical Church of Enlightenment, and they're all wonderful. Because they believe that there's more than one path. And we come to a point in our awareness that we realize all the paths come to oneness. And you are?
Thank you, I'm going to pass.
Pardon?
I'm going to pass this.
And you are?
My name is Jurek, Leo, and goddess has always played a pivotal part of my life.
How so? The goddess has played a part in his life. And how?
I've been brought up by very strong two feminine goddesses, my mother and my grandmother.
Your mother and grandmother were goddesses.
Yeah.
And how? He's got a good respect. And where do you come from originally?
Originally Poland, but also I tend to say that I was reborn on Maui. I lived there for many years.
Poland and reborn on Maui. Okay. We're an eclectic group, thank you. Okay. And you are?
My name is Cindy, I'm a Leo, and I've always been very intuitive for many years, and about 2 years ago I went against my intuition, which resulted in terrible stuff that I don't know if I'll ever get out of. For 2 years now I've gone into a deep depression, and feel very spiritually bleak. I'm partial in spirit, and I just made a mistake that cost me everything. And, my soulmate, and
your soulmate.
I think I'm not sure if she's my soulmate or not, but the person was very important to me, and as part of my development, sort of mother figure, and just some really important primal stuff, and
You
it's
can
thrown me
get-
off completely.
So you can come right back in, on your path.
I don't know, but I just came out of desperation, I'm so used to doing things intuitive, I'm overly intuitive, I don't do things very logically, and I just sort of do things, I'm led, and it's always worked for me in the past, and tonight I sort of threw myself together and came up from San Jose on the transit and just said, I'll just try it, and I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, that's how I'm used to doing things, almost
We've got
overly that way.
and I have a wise woman circle class in San Jose every Wednesday night.
Okay.
But the thing is that all of us in Cayce readings, being of help to each other is really our purpose for being here. So we're blessed that you're sharing that, and we can send you a real blessing tonight. And you, sir?
My name is Richard, and I am Gemini, and what draws me to the goddess is the beauty and nurturance energy.
Beauty and nurturance is the
Yes.
goddess energy to you?
Yes.
Thank you. And how do you see the goddess, and what image is important to you?
Mother goddess.
Mother goddess. Beautiful. Okay, and you are?
I'm Rita, and I'm a Libra, and I've been drawn to the energies of empowerment and spirituality. And mainly it's what been overused, it's primarily been Kuan Yin for the feminine energy, the goddess of love and mercy, which is Chinese, like an equivalent of a Chinese angel. But then also the Aloe Guadalupe too, so, you know, I've always wanted to empower people and to be empowered, so, but I still have lessons to learn myself. So, I've always been drawn to this type of environment, so I came from San Jose too, but somehow, the last few weeks I've been drawn to Mountain View, but I don't know exactly why. I knew there was a reason, and I attended the arts festival, and then I said, oh, the East-West bookstore.
So thank you very much. Thank you so much for sharing. And here?
My name is Paige, and I'm a Virgo, and I'm also drawn to the beauty of Divine Mother, and the Divine Mother aspect of the family.
Did you want to share?
Yes, I'm Enid, and I'm a Gemini, and I'm a drop-in, and I think I bring you a message from Mary Elizabeth. I am here on a workshop this weekend with an ARE group
Oh my goodness.
in Mountain View,
Oh, how wonderful.
or at Vallombrosa.
Well, Mary Elizabeth and her husband, they're so wonderful.
Yes.
And wonderful people in the Cayce work who have a real soulmate tie, and our blessings go back to Mark and Mary Elizabeth. And thank you so much for bringing that connection. They're wonderful people working in the area who carry the heart and spirit. And who's next to share?
I'm Star. I'm Libra. And I have, in my heritage, I have ancestors that have had gifts. And I have had gifts. And
You can tell the camera, tell that camera.
I've been sad not to be able to share some of these with my children. But I'm glad to have found a teacher with whom I can share this.
Tonight is our night out of the closet. We have a wonderful writing group, and we have beautiful, kindly, fundamentalist Christians, we have Buddhists, and we metaphysical people are in the closet, and so it's wonderful to be out tonight. And we know Mike.
I'm Mike. I'm Virgo. I'm sort of new to this world. Haven't had many rounds. Star called me to this round. And I'm just on a journey to, I guess you would call it, dive into the valley, dive into the center. Get used to people.
Thank you very much, Mike. Beautiful sharing.
I'm Phyllis Butler. I'm a Scorpio with lots of Virgo in all my houses, I've been told. I came to the feminine goddess idea. I married my soulmate quite young and had children and didn't get to my writing desire until I decided to split from him, and so then I got a job with a feminist press and started getting in touch with the whole goddess concept, and ended up writing several books myself and editing and books about Alviso, and I'm a Berkeley graduate and I live in Menlo Park, and if we have any more
Oh my God.
synchronicity,
We
I'm
have
going
to talk. Everybody who wants to stay in touch, put your phone number on that sheet.
Thank you.
And you shared something.
I'm Peter, and I'm a Leo, and I'm also a tiger. So yes, I'm both females.
A Leo tiger. Oh my gosh.
And I'm here because I want to balance my female more. What she's talking about is a while back. Actually, I can tell you the first part of that because I saw that you had the picture of the Virgin of Guadalupe.
The Virgen de Guadalupe.
The Virgin of
I know. Hablo español.
And what I told her is about 2 years ago when I started doing the meditation and going on a spiritual path. In one of my meditations, the first part that I didn't tell you was I received 2 tokens. And I'll just talk about the one token. One token, it looked like a gold coin in my meditation. And closed eyes. And I had the Virgin of Guadalupe on it. And then a day or 2 later, what happened was, and then she appeared to me in my meditation, and touched me on the eye. I was very blessed.
Wow. So it's your inner experience of the Virgen de Guadalupe touching you in your third eye, awakening you.
And what really stood out to me was her aura.
Her
the
aura?
colors.
What color?
Well, I can't remember because it was a while back, but I just remember it was very bright. Because it wasn't totally clear, but it stands out more than her finger does.
Thank you so much. And you can go to Freedom, California near Santa Cruz and go to a beautiful place where people put flowers to honor the Virgin de Guadalupe. And it's a beautiful sacred place and trees and nature and frogs and everything to do with the goddess energy. And you are?
My name is Krista. I'm a Libra, and I was drawn to the write-up about this ceremony actually, and I'm a transpersonal psychotherapist for Revs, and was interested in hearing more about Cayce because it kind of blew me away. I forgot about it. I thought I was going to hear about it.
I hope the book, and in the book I've tried to make this connection accessible through ritual, and it's a research reference book you can open up with all kinds of connections to empower you with rituals that you can do, and my degrees in transpersonal studies also.
My name is Lisa, and I'm an Aries, and I've just had a bunch of coincidences for the past 2 weeks. I rented a movie, and I ended up with the Myth of Avalon. It was in the wrong case.
They got us a story.
You've never seen it before, but oh my God, it was great.
It changes your life.
And then
The Myth of Avalon.
a friend had given me a book, I think, Where the Wild Women Run.
Run with Wolves.
Yes, Run with Wolves, thank you. And she gave it to me for my birthday, and I just started reading it at the same time, and then I read this write-up, and I'm like, well, okay, clearly I have to do this. So I'm just here to learn, I'm thoroughly.
Well, they're wonderful books. The Myths of Avalon, when God Was a Woman, when I had the crisis of too much father focus and threw everything out, even Cayce, into the vacuum came these wonderful books that have inspired so many of us. When God Was a Woman, The Myths of Avalon, and more. Well, great. We'd like you just to close your eyes, if you will, and join with us in a meditative state. To music, and let yourself commune with the goddess.
On the trail, thick grass on both sides, and you're walking to a temple. And as you're walking to the temple, you feel a breeze come around you and sweep you sweetly, sweep you. And as you walk closer to the temple, you stand before the temple steps and walk up the temple steps. And the doors open. And as you go up the steps and enter the temple, this is the temple of the goddess. There is flowers and fragrances. And the goddess stands before you.
yourself to be in this temple with images from many faiths, from many teachings. All around you are images from the 5 races of humanity. And you see the image of God and Goddess in India, Shakti and Shiva. You see the corn goddess in the Native American lands, inspired woman. The Great Spirit. You go to the African American altar. You hear the question from African folklore: who was the mother of Elegba, the chief magician? She asked. Elegba is a trickster figure. Hermes is linked to the trickster. Who is the mother? She is referred to as Nana Baruka, but that is not her name. At the yellow altar you see Kuan Yin. Kuan, earth, Yin, woman. Holy Mother of Compassion. You see the yin-yang wheel. In Japan, you see Iznadi and Iznamami. They're one as Amaterasu, the sun goddess. In Scandinavia, the goddess spun the golden threads, the universal design of past, present, and future. She is shown as having the sexual organs of both sexes, an androgynous being, with bow in one hand and sword in the other. Her husband is Odin, and the legend surrounding her son, Balder, can be compared to other myths of dying sons or lovers, the goddess of the Near East. In Greece, Aphrodite, Adonis, Dionysius, even Zeus were described in hermaphroditic terms. Aphrodite was also known as Aphroditus. Robert Graves says, I am nature, the universal mother, mistress of all elements. Though I am worshipped in many aspects, known by countless names, yet the whole round earth venerates me. The Huichol Indians of Jalisco have a pantheon of goddesses. One is the mother of the Pacific Ocean. She separates the living from the dead. The great goddess is known as our great-grandmother. All the forms are one. The Creator is one.
While you stand in the temple, one of the goddesses calls you forth. Imagine yourself floating up to this goddess, feeling her divine grace. She has a gift for you. Imagine that gift. This gift is specially for you to take home to remember.
Edgar Cayce said the best psychic for you is yourself. We want you to take a moment to scry as they did in ancient times in the Celtic and European lands. Tuning in, this is the time of the waning moon and the waning sun. It's a time to go deep within and to know the magic, to go beyond the veil. The goddess has 3 aspects: the maiden, the mother, wise one, dark Aphrodite, just as the masculine has the Trinity, and together they make the Star of David, a masculine and feminine star. Go within and ask the Creator within you. And tonight we focus on the Goddess center of God, Goddess, and all that is. Ask a question, and in the stillness, know by the color you feel, the words you hear, the sense of knowing. Let yourself hear an answer without any effort or feeling. Raise the questions in your life, for you are the best psychic for you. Just take a moment and let the answers stream forth from higher power through the divine spark in you. As we do this and you open your eyes, this is a time for you to think about something that you would like to release. It's in your way of fulfilling your destiny. So if there's anything you want to release, extend your hands out and you can say, and we can all talk at once, I release my bad habits, my doubt, and we're going to release it into the waning moon circle and into the hands of our loving Creator to be transformed into compost to grow new flowers. So if there's something you'd like to release, murmur it, put it in intention to be dissolved in the circle. Up and take from the wonderful creative forces that surround us, your Creator, called by many names and many cultures, only one Creator, all the blessings that you need in your life. You can murmur your prayer or say it inwardly and draw, and they used to draw down the moon, draw down the blessings of the wonderful, loving Mother, Father, Creator. Into your body, wherever you need it, you can touch your body and into your spirit. Well, we're going to release the directions and then we're all going to join in singing a wonderful Goddess song. So, how do the hearts release their directions?
There goes the bell. I release the directions and the elementals and guardians of the north. We thank you for coming. We appreciate your guidance. I release the guardians and the elementals of the west and the water. Thank you for coming. We appreciate your guidance. Release the elementals and the guardians of the south. We appreciate your coming. We appreciate your guidance. Release the elementals and the guardians of the east. Thank you for coming, we appreciate your guidance. The circle is now.
And we'd like you to join with us in singing the song, and it's called Mother Waters. We'll listen to Janet sing it, and then everyone's invited to join in. Water is the mother of all life.
Mother waters, mother, mother waters, calling me, calling me. Mother waters, mother, mother waters, calling
all for coming and joining us, and thank you, Robert Burrell and Joe Haddocks and Doc and Patricia and Janet. And thank all of you, and please stay, and if you'd like to get a book, it has a compilation of wisdom that I think is valuable. I probably could never do this again, and it's here, and I'm very proud of it. And hope you get a chance to get it and to visit with us, and also find ways to stay in touch. We would really, really like that.
And also these little papers, these were readings, little mini readings from Edgar Cayce.
That's your present to take home with you. And thank you again.
Be gentle.
So we go buy the book out there.
Get a book, bring it in, and we'll be over here and signing and talking and answering questions. And we'll see you.
Got some pretty good footage. Look, I got some really good footage. Yeah. Very good.
Other waters, mother waters, calling me, calling me. Mother waters, mother waters, calling me, calling me. Mother waters, mother waters, calling me, calling me. Mother waters, set me free.
I'm very proud of it, and hope you get a chance to get it and to visit with us, and also find ways to stay in touch. We would really, really like that.
And also these little papers, these were readings, little mini readings from Edgar Cayce.
That's your present to take home with you. And thank you again.
Be gentle.
So we go buy the book out there.
Get a book, bring it in, and we'll be over here and signing and talking and answering questions. And we'll see you.
Got some pretty good footage. Look, I got some really good footage. Yeah. Very good.